Hello everyone and welcome to the Middle Ages channel. Today we're pulling back the velvet curtains and stepping into the vibrant, chaotic, and often treacherous world of the king's court. Forget what you've seen in fairy tales. The real medieval court was the pulsating heart of the kingdom, a place of immense power, dazzling spectacle, and deadly intrigue. So what exactly was the king's court? It wasn't just a single building or a grand hall. It was a traveling circus of power. The court was wherever the king was, and it was made up of his family, his most trusted advisors, knights, nobles, servants, and a whole host of officials. This entourage could number in the hundreds, even thousands, constantly moving from one royal residence to another. Why were they always on the move? Well, for one, it was a way for the king to show his face across the realm, to administer justice, and to remind everyone who was in charge. Plus, imagine feeding and housing 1,000 people for months on end. The local resources would be exhausted pretty quickly. They would literally eat a region out of house and home, so moving on was a necessity. At the very center of this swirling universe was, of course, the king himself. His word was law, his favor was the ultimate prize, and his anger could mean ruin or even death. The king's day was a whirlwind of activity. He'd start with morning prayers, then hold audiences, hear petitions from his subjects, and meet with his council to discuss matters of state, things like taxes, laws, and foreign policy. But it wasn't all work and no play. The king was also the chief host, presiding over lavish feasts, tournaments, and hunts which were not just for fun, but were crucial displays of wealth and power. Surrounding the king was a hierarchy of powerful figures. The queen, for example, was far more than just the king's wife. She had her own household, her own lands, and considerable political influence. A savvy queen could be a formidable diplomat, a patron of the arts, and a key advisor to her husband. Then there was the chancellor, often a high-ranking clergyman, who was essentially the king's chief minister, responsible for drafting royal documents and affixing the Great Seal, the official stamp of royal authority. You also had the treasurer, who managed the kingdom's finances, a stressful job for sure, and the chamberlain, who managed the king's personal household and controlled access to the royal presence. Gaining the favor of the chamberlain was a vital first step for anyone hoping to get close to the king. Life at court was a constant performance. Every gesture, every word, every piece of clothing was carefully chosen to signal one's status and ambition. Fashion was incredibly important. The richness of your fabrics, silks, velvets, and furs, and the brightness of your colors showed everyone how wealthy and important you were. There were even laws called sumptuary laws that dictated who could wear what. If you were a merchant, you couldn't just decide to dress like a duke. It was against the law. This constant competition for status created an atmosphere of intense rivalry. The court was a place of opportunity. For a young noble, serving as a page or a squire in a great lord's household or even the king's, was the path to knighthood and a career in service to the crown. For a clever administrator, it was a way to rise through the ranks and gain immense power. But with great opportunity came great danger. The court was a hotbed of gossip, plots, and backstabbing. A misplaced word or a powerful enemy could lead to a sudden fall from grace. Courtiers had to be masters of flattery, discretion, and political maneuvering just to survive, let alone thrive. You had to know who your friends were, and more importantly, who your enemies were. Entertainment was a huge part of court life. It wasn't just about passing the time. It was about projecting an image of magnificence. Grand feasts would feature exotic dishes, think roasted swans and peacocks redressed in their feathers, accompanied by music from minstrels and performances by jesters and acrobats. Tournaments were massive spectacles where knights could prove their valor in jousts and melees, competing for prizes and the admiration of the court, especially the ladies. Troubadours and poets would sing songs of chivalry and courtly love, creating a romanticized ideal that often clashed with the harsh political realities of the court. Justice was also dispensed at court. The king was the ultimate judge, and people from all walks of life could, in theory, bring their grievances directly to him. The king's bench, as it was known, would travel with the court, hearing cases and delivering judgments. This was a powerful tool for maintaining order and reinforcing royal authority throughout the kingdom. Of course, getting your case heard wasn't always easy, and justice could often depend on who you knew and how much influence you had. So the king's court was this incredible contradictory place. It was a center of culture, learning, and governance, but also a snake pit of ambition and betrayal. It was where national policy was decided and where the latest fashions were born. It was a place of high ideals of chivalry and brutal political reality. It defined the power structure of the entire medieval world, with the king at its center, holding everything together through a complex web of loyalty, obligation, and fear. It was the stage upon which the grand drama of medieval history was played out. Thanks so much for joining us on this journey into the king's court. I hope you found it as fascinating as I do. What part of court life would you have wanted to experience? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Middle Ages channel for more deep dives into this amazing era. We'll see you in the next one.